Hey guys, Poro here with another recap, this time for day 7 of MSI. We have FlyQuest vs G2, a grudge match between EU and NA, followed by the 1 seed from the LPL taking on the 1 seed from the LCK with AL vs Gen G. My predictions today are FlyQuest 3-1 and Gen G 3-2. I think G2 can take a game if they get one of their slower scaling comps like a Maokai, but I can't see them winning on anything else. And for Gen G, I think AL looked more in form in round 1, but I want to give Gen G benefit of the doubt for being jet-lagged and out of practice, and I think they'll ramp up in this tournament. Game 1 of FlyQuest vs G2 started out in G2's favor. Not much happened early, and the first big moment was at the second dragon fight, where G2 simply played the situation better with their Maokai. Quad got chunked out heavily, and Bwipo played a bit too aggressive, and the fight went G2's way. At the third dragon, the fight went relatively even, but G2 had collected all 3 drakes at this point, whereas Fly had the gold lead due to a 4-1 turret lead. The goal for G2 was to get Soul, and the goal for Fly was to use their gold advantage to make sure G2 never gets a fair fight again. And through great plays by Bwipo and Inspired throughout the course of the game, Fly's game plan won out. Caps and Broken Blade made a number of mistakes, dying to ganks, dives, and even getting solo killed. Inspired was everywhere around the map with his Pantheon ults, and Bwipo was extremely active looking for advantages whenever possible. The game came to a head when Quad overextended top when Inspired was on a reset, and G2 decided to go for the Baron with the advantage they had. Busio got chunked out heavily, and the situation looked decent for G2, but Fly won the 3v5 with great fights from Bwipo, Inspired, and Masu, and the game was over from there. I gave Skumond and Lebrov 3s because they played out the first 3 drakes together well, and even when the game started crumbling, Lebrov's performance was pretty solid. He did go for his stupid vision face check once while Maokai was on the other side of the map, but he didn't end up dying or blowing ult, so it was fine. Broken Blade and Caps made multiple mistakes on side lanes, and Caps got caught out at the 4th dragon fight, so they both got 2s. Hans picked Jhin, lost a bot push against the Varus Karma as expected, and never accomplished anything productive, so I also gave him a 2. For FlyQuest, Quad was the one making all the big mistakes that turned the game in G2's favor for the moments they were ahead, so I gave him a 2. Busio gets a 3 because he did his job on the Karma by getting push and then making some teamfights annoyingly difficult for G2. Masu gets a 4 because his overall solid play and great Baron fight, but I do want to note that he made a big mistake early by overstepping mid with no flash and being punished by a creative Lebrov flank. Bwipo and Inspired were the MVPs in this one, both played fantastic games. This game is massive for FlyQuest as they let G2 pick their favorite Maokai comp, and they managed to win anyway, which means that G2's best strategy is gone. Ideally, Fly should be able to turn this into a clean series win. Notable though is that Caps played Cassio here, which means G2 has that extra ban for the rest of the series, since they don't need to worry about Quad's pocket pick anymore. Game 2 was pretty clean from FlyQuest for the most part. G2 started off with a lead, with a level 1 2v2 double kill for Corki after an overstep from Busio, but after that, G2 made 2 huge mistakes by attempting to fight Grubs and second Drake against the Wukong Annie combo. This gave Fly a lead heading into mid-game, where the value of the Bard pick came through. It was locked as a counterpick to the Vi and Rel, as he can block both of their engages with his ult, and Busio did just that by stifling every engage while simultaneously running around the map getting advantages and saving teammates. The game was pretty cleanly closed out as Fly got Soul, 2 Barons, and Elder. To note though, there was a massive mid-gap this series in favor of G2. Caps was trying his hardest to 1v9, and he had an overall very strong performance on Aurora with great damage and angles in all the mid-late game teamfights. On the flip side, Quad was disgusting on the Annie, and I actually never want to see him play it again. He almost threw the game multiple times by playing too aggressive and going for big flash stuns instead of just playing slow with his team. He also got solo killed as the cherry on top, overall a really difficult watch. I knocked Lebrov down to a 2 for getting caught multiple times, the biggest one probably being in front of 3rd Drake, and I also knocked Skumond down for contesting those bad early objectives and getting all of his engages countered by Bard. I left Broken Blade and Hans at a 3 because it felt like they were playing pretty standard games on their champions. For FlyQuest, I want to point out that while Bwipo had an ugly scoreline and a few ugly looking fights, I actually like basically every angle he went for, and thought he created a lot of space in fights. Inspired and Busio looked great, and Masu was stacking extremely well on the Senna. Fly is now up 2-0, and without the Maokai, I think G2 will struggle to win Game 3. Game 3 was made difficult for G2 right away, as Skumond went for a failed top play and then got caught heading back to Raptors, and then he went for a bot dive against Yorick and completely failed. This forced G2 to have to play on the back foot for the entire early game, until Bwipo had a pretty bad overstep trying to position for the 3rd Drake, which stalled the game for a bit. Despite that, the game was over at 25 minutes from one bad teamfight from G2, and FlyQuest just walked it in and ended with no Baron and no Soul, completing the 3-0 for Fly. Really short summary, but realistically the game was super hard to play from level 1, as FlyQuest had 3 pushing lanes, and Scumon's attempts to change that were shut down. As for ratings, Inspired was great as always, Masu had a fantastic performance on the Kai'Sa, and Quad once again underperformed by being down a sizable amount of farm to Caps in the 1v1, and getting picked bot for being overextended. Unfortunately, Fly vs G2 was just the same as it's been for G2 all tournament. Caps individually looked great, but the rest of his team just couldn't keep up and were all individually outperformed. As soon as G2 lost the Maokai game, I had a feeling the series was doomed. That said though, I hope people cut them a little bit of slack. I think Lebrov is a player who thrives off of playing around as jungler, and Scumont just doesn't have enough experience yet as a young rookie to know what all of his windows for action are, which leads the team overall feeling very AFK. I think Scumont deserves a little bit more time, as he's definitely a promising player with solid mechanics. That said, there's no way to sugarcoat the fact that these two players changed Winter and Spring G2 for the worse, and they were big reasons as to why they couldn't make a deeper run at this tournament. FlyQuest still looks solid with everyone on the team except for Quad having pretty consistently good performances, which is a sentence I did not expect to be saying. I don't know if FlyQuest can beat the loser of T1 versus BLG, but I think there's a chance that FlyQuest can make them work for it. With this series done, the battle of the 1 seeds is next. Game 1 was pretty even at first. There was a lot of fist fighting back and forth bot, but no true advantages gained, and then we got a full 5v5 at Void Grubs, which ended up going 3 for 3 after Kyle got caught and died early, but then Flandre saved the play with huge damage on the back end. With the game still dead even and the Grubs still alive, Tarzan was able to bait in Duro and Canyon to think they had a pick, but AL was there ready for the play and punished to give AL a sizable lead. The game after that was no fault of Gen G's, as they attempted to make good plays with numbers and rotations, but AL was always able to stall out and survive until the team rotations came through, and they won every single fight with their good recovery and constant gold lead. Genuine domination from AL here. This is not the start Gen G wanted, and they don't look in form yet. I didn't punish anyone on Gen G except for Duro, as he was the main one who fell for the bait mid lane after the first Grubs fight, which propelled the game in AL's favor. Apart from that, every fight angle Gen G looked for seemed reasonable and was close, and everyone on the team played the fights pretty well. It's just that AL played all the fights better and had more items to work with. I had Kyle's rating down at first after the Grubs int, but the recovery afterwards and his team fighting was great enough that I gave him a 4 as well. Just a good clean look from everyone so far. Game 2 started off pretty horribly for AL, as they attempted a vertical jungle split to set up a dive on bot, but they couldn't get enough damage down on the enemy bot lane to attempt the dive, and Flandre went to harass Kenyon on the first camp but was a bit too late, which forced Flandre to take half his health and start the lane down XP. Keen took this advantage and ran with it, having a constant massive advantage the entire game, and Gen G played around their new prio to take every dragon. The game got a bit tense at Herald when AL actually won a fight off of a Chovy misstep, but apart from that, the fights and objectives were all Gen G. I gave Flandre and Shanks a 2, as both made many mistakes in lane and neither were able to have an impact in mid-game. Kyle and Tarzan both get 3s for me, as it felt like both were trying their best to do their job, but couldn't deal with the big gold advantages Gen G had. Hope gets a 4, as he was actually super scary for the important fights, dishing a lot of damage and playing on the edge to try and claw the game back. For Gen G, Keen and Canyon both get 4s. Keen played fantastically with the level 1 lead he got off the Flandre int, and both Keen and Chovy had amazing team fighting after the Herald, which gave AL no angle to come back. Ruler actually did not play great, as he overstepped against at least 2 important gold cards that got his summoners burned and his health chunked before the fight started, which made the fights more complicated than they needed to be. Canyon and Duro both get 3s for playing a solid but not overly impressive game. Game 3 was a great game to watch. Shanks picked Akali into Chovy's Talia, which should have been a point of pressure for Gen G early, but Tarzan had a good angle for a 3-camp gank to burn Chovy's flash and give Shanks more space. Canyon then greeted for a crab and got punished, which gave Shanks a lead, and he took that lead and turned it into a grub fight win. The game was still close by the Herald fight, where Keen and Chovy team fought very well as Kyle got instantly caught. Now the game is in Gen G's favor, but it's time for AL to find the great angle as Ruler takes a greedy path to the dragon and gets caught out by Shanks, who had a super pop-off 4th dragon fight. AL is now in the driver's seat again, but Keen stepped up big at Drake Fight 5 to zone out 4 members of AL all on his own, and then Canyon and Duro find a snap engage after to set AL behind once again. The final straw was the super fed Akali getting picked out by a great Vi ult from Canyon, and AL got mostly wiped trying to defend the play. Gen G were able to end the game shortly after. I gave Flandre a 2 for the Scion, as he got picked multiple times on side and was not able to be effective in teamfights. Tarzan gets a 3 for having a great early game, but tapering off and making more mistakes the later the game got. Kyle was the inverse, having a bad Herald fight initially, but then redeeming himself at the 4th Drake fight to bring his score back to even. For Gen G, I knocked Canyon and Ruler down despite their performances being mostly solid, as it was their one big mistake each that put Gen G in a losing position in the first place. Keen, Chovy, and Duro all played solid games, despite Chovy falling behind early and overall being less flashy than the Akali. I would give Keen a 5 for solo shifting the momentum back to Gen G at Drake fight number 4, but he did kind of give Akali a free shutdown by going for a Psycho turret dive 1-for-1 after the Herald fight. Game 4 was another close one. Flandre went for the Smolder counterpick against Cassante, and the game became about whether or not Gen G could shut him down. The early game here was not pretty from either team. All the early advantages for both teams were from missteps, whether it was Duro dying from a gank with Vision top, or Hope dying mid against a Cassante who didn't need to use Flash, or Shanks randomly dying bot side after Herald went down. With the game even, Tarzan found a great angle at the third Drake fight to swing the game in AL's favor. Chovy went for a flank TP, and Tarzan used the control ward Vision denial to surprise Ruler and Duro with a flash combo to set up the Wombo for his team. Messy game or not, Smolder got to 225 in time from that, and it was just a Smolder moment from there. Gen G tried to make a few plays, but Keen getting caught top into a losing fight and Baron for AL was the final straw, and Gen G had no hope after that. I gave everyone not named Canyon a 2 for getting caught on bad timers, whether it was Duro on the gank and the third Drake, Ruler on the third Drake, Chovy in bot jungle at 22 minutes, or Keen topside before Baron. Canyon played fine, just nothing to do around the constant mistakes. As for AL, Hope gets a 2 for the same reason, as he got caught mid, but everyone else either played solid games, or in Shanks' case, did enough positive in teamfights to make up for his mistake. Even though Smolder was the main focus of the team, I decided to leave Flandre at a 3. He didn't navigate the early game that well, getting his flash blown twice. In a different world, he may get punished for that and become a liability. He also didn't need to pop off in a teamfight at all or recover from the back foot. By the time he got 225, Gen G were in a tricky enough position that they needed to take crazy angles to even have a chance to win, and it was easy for Smolder to play the fights out. With this, we go to silver scrapes between my favorite team and the consensus favorites to win the event. Game 5 was yet another close one, but to be honest, it probably had no right being competitive at all. The game was a stomp for a while, with Canyon taking over the map early, getting Flandre super behind, and killing Shanks with a well-timed gank. Ruler had a fantastic fight on Grubs, absolutely outplaying everyone on AL despite the fight being pretty realistically winnable for either side, and Hope getting hooked and one-shot at the first Drake seemed to seal the deal as Gen G had complete control and a 3k gold lead. Then, Gen G decided to invade for Raptors, and the sequence of events from AL was beautiful. Kyle was prepared for the invade and had a flank position which he used to get a taunt. Skarner then found an ult on Sejuani to force the play to extend, and Keen went for a bad Camille ult on Skarner, which Tarzan flashed into the turret to make Keen overextend heavily. Flandre came in with a beautiful 4-man flask to ensure there was no follow-up, and Shanks came in last to outplay Ruler and clean up the fight. Just a pure teamfighting masterclass from AL, and the game was thrown back to even for just a moment. From that point on, it was the Duro show. At the third Drake standoff, he landed 3 huge hooks to completely 1v9 the situation, and he kept landing quality hooks throughout the rest of the game as AL crumbled. I do want to provide more context for my 3 out of 5 rating for Keen, as people will think I just hate top laners at this rate after my scores for Doran yesterday. Keen did look good on the Camille for sure, but I think there's some context. Ruler smurfed the Grub fight, but Keen was the one who collected the double kill from it. Canyon was the one who set Flandre behind level 1, so Keen got to have a super easy lane phase. Keen was the biggest defender at the Raptors play, which swung the game back, even if everyone on AL played the fight stellar. And finally, Keen getting dove bot did end up getting Gen G a Baron, but I still feel like it was fundamentally a bad mistake, because both solo laners on AL had teleport, which means a contest was always possible. I think Gen G get the Baron either way with their lead, regardless of if a play is made on Keen or not. So yeah, 3 for Keen. I think everyone else's ratings in Game 5 speak for themselves. This series was amazing to watch, and everything I wanted it to be. Other than an AL 3-0, which would have been great. I think AL came out looking 95% on form for what they did domestically. Hope and Kyle were making more mistakes than I'm used to, but we still got flashes of what those two can do when in the zone. We got to see Flandre come out with some creative picks and be fairly useful most of the time. We saw Tarzan just be a great jungler overall, and Shanks finally got his first true big debut internationally, and he definitely made the best of it, playing just as well as I've ever seen him play. For Gen G, I still don't think they played up to their standard. I saw a different team in LCK, and I'd say Gen G was only about 70 to 80% as good as I think they can be. I don't think Canyon and Chovy played badly today by any means, but I do think they were much less effective against Tarzan and Shanks than I know they can be. Ruler has been making these mistakes all year, so it's whatever, but I expect Canyon and Chovy to look a little bit better in the next few series, or I'll be disappointed. There are no predictions today, as day 9 and 10 aren't decided until day 8 matches are played, so that's everything I have for you this time. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye!